Welcome, Sandra, to the 16th episode of Unleash the Knowledge's mini-series titled 15 Minutes with Owen. It's an absolute pleasure to be speaking with you today, and I really want to start off by saying that I love your drive and your ability to create such a success story from the cards that you were dealt. We'll get into your background in a little bit, but quickly, you're an immigrant female who has achieved an Ivy League degree and then nevertheless has been able to create two companies, sold one of them, and is currently leading the second. So I want to kick it off with that, and thank you very much.
It's my pleasure to be here with you, Owen.
Awesome. And that all being said, you are the best-selling author and international award winner for your latest book, New Startup Mindset, and the subtitle reads 10 Mindset Shifts to Build a Company of Your Dreams. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. Coming from the millennial standpoint, we are exposed to all these social norms and these pretty much false perceptions of what it means to be an entrepreneur, what it means to, take it on your own and leave the 9-to-5 life and create a business. And you stay in the book, obviously, all about the Silicon Valley standard avatar. And it's amazing to see that you have debunked all those myths and have been able to create amazing success for yourself.
That's right. That's exactly what I'm trying to do in the book. I wrote the book because my journey was untraditional. And I had learned so much in this process of starting, building, and then exiting my first startup, Seeker Health. And I thought I really had to share it. I wanted to share it. One, I had learned a ton. Two, everything that I had done was actually not following this traditional Silicon Valley formula that exists out there that sort of tells you that, you have to be a programmer and you have to have a co-founder and you have to go raise venture capital. And I had done none of that and still was able to build a company that was successful enough to have 3 offers for acquisition. And the final reason why I wrote the book is that I survived, right? Many times we think about the startup process, the process of starting and building a company. It's a difficult journey for sure, but it's also one that is full of amazing experiences, great personal growth. And that was another aspect that I wanted to bring to the book, that as you set on this journey to create a startup, it's almost impossible to truly fail because something amazing is going to happen to you in this process of just overcoming the obstacles, being present to what is happening in your market, for your customer, for you. And so those are the key reasons why I wrote the book.
I love that. That's amazing. So many points you touched upon. One being that, I like to look at failures as not a negative thing, as a lesson. And like you just noted, even though, things might be tough during the startup process, you're going to come out with some sort of growth, some sort of positivity that you can, send off to someone else, or you can benefit personally as well. So amazing stuff. And I just want to also commemorate you as someone who's taken the stand to push that women can also be a founder and they can be in Silicon Valley and make a mark. And on top of that, also, and I touched upon this the other day with you through our messaging, that you connect self-care and meditation and mindfulness to the entrepreneurship journey. And I think that's extremely important to note. And just a subtle plug, which is no sales or relationship is tied into, but you're on Insight Timer, which is a new application that I was just introduced to. And it's another meditation mindfulness app on smartphones. And I'd encourage everyone to check out the app, but also Sandra's own meditations, which are also in the book. At the end of each chapter, there's a meditation. So I think that's really cool that you've been able to fuse the two.
Yes. I love what I'm doing there in Insight Timer. I am a huge fan of mindfulness and meditation, and whichever ways a person can find mindfulness. Simply said, mindfulness is being in the present moment. So not being in the past, ruminating about things we can no longer change or control, and not being in the future, anxious about something that also we can't quite control or know what's going to happen. So it's really about being in the present and being completely open to what it has to offer you right now. And some of it might feel pleasant, some of it might feel unpleasant, but whatever it is, it's what's in front of us right now. And it takes practice, right? And that's why I recorded some of the meditations on Insight Timer. I put some of the meditations in the book because it's not something that we just snap into to be mindful and to be in the present moment. It's something that truly we wake up every day to practice.
Right. You're so right. And I know there's a huge wave of mindfulness in the current social media world and in my personal generation, but it's I'm glad that I've adopted the practice, and it's helped me tremendously. I'm on a 85-day streak currently at the time of this recording, so it's benefited me tremendously, and I'd always, encourage others to adopt the same practice.
That is awesome, Owen.
Cool. So we'll get started. I'll start my 15-minute timer, and we will get into some fun questions and provide some value to my audience.
Sounds great.
All right. So first question, for those that might not know too much about you, Sandra, can you share a little bit about yourself?
Yes, absolutely. I'm an entrepreneur and an author. I started my first company, Seeker Health, in 2015. And Seeker Health was a patient finding platform. We helped patients find clinical trials that were looking for them. And those clinical trials were developing new treatments, generally for pretty serious conditions. So cancer, rare diseases, serious diseases. I built the company for 3 years in very counterintuitive ways, or I guess in ways that do not fit the Silicon Valley formula. And then in year 3, I had 3 offers to acquire the company, and I went with the third. And so I sold the company in 2018. Then I stayed on for my acquirer for a little bit. And around that time, I realized I had this incredible opportunity to go through the start, the build, and the exit of my company, something that not every entrepreneur gets a chance to do. And so decided to write the book, New Startup Mindset, which has been also a great experience. And now I'm building my second company, Adnexi. Adnexi is a patient intelligence platform where we help patients learn about their diseases in the most complete and intelligent way. And I think what's particularly salient about my story, as you mentioned, is that, I'm not the formula, right? I am a woman, I'm an immigrant, I'm not a programmer and developed a tech company. I didn't raise venture funds, right? I sort of did everything my own way, the way that made sense to me, the way that I wanted to do it. And then, and it was still a success. And so mostly that's one of the things that I really want to share, that if some of the people may not see themselves in this formula, they may not like some of the activities that are involved in the formula that Silicon Valley has put out for most entrepreneurs, well, you don't have to follow it. You can go and still create the company of your dreams, do it on your own terms, and achieve, great success in whichever way you measure that success, which need not always be the creation of a huge brand, need not always be, right, creating a unicorn, right, $1 billion company. So that's why I'm here.
Right. I love in the book you state, everyone knows about the Facebooks, the Apple, the Amazons, these big corporations, and those are labeled as unicorns. That's the term in Silicon Valley for a $1 billion or more valuation company. But you talk about gazelles and giraffes and horses and all these other pieces. So, it's tough because I'd like to be the voice one day for my generation where we're striving for instant gratification and we don't want to put the work in. We want to get all the goodies right up front and we don't want it to be hard. But that's essentially not the case, and that's never going to be the case, at least for something that's going to be worthwhile to obtain. But I love that you went first to build a company and you had success, and that was already an unconventional route, but now you're building another one, so you're already onto something new. And I know writing a book is not an easy process by any means, so you've just had this continuous drive to keep going, and I really admire that. So thank you for sharing that about yourself. I hope that can, inspire tons of people, and I know it will. Another question I have is, one of the standouts I had in the book was that you didn't accept outside funding. And that could be a challenge for many people because, one, they don't want to give up any of their company, but they also don't have any money saved in the bank. What's your advice to the entrepreneur who doesn't want to take on the funding from outside because of this loss of control, but also doesn't have the nest egg or is potentially in debt from student loans and is really struggling financially? What's any insight you can give that person?
Yeah, my advice is super simple there. Obtain early paying customers as soon as possible, right? And so I want to share how my company started because it's a different way that most tech companies start. My company started by me providing a service. And that service was I was providing Facebook advertising for clinical trials right? Which is a service. So I didn't need any special software that I had to create. I didn't need any capital, really. What I needed to know was how to do Facebook advertising, how to apply it to this niche of clinical trials, which required quite a number of customizations, right? And then I had to go get customers who wanted to try it. And so that's really what enabled me to raise basically the funding that I needed eventually to turn the service into a platform. And a platform now, had software. So I had to go get some software developers to help me develop the platform. But by the time I went out to develop the platform and have to pay the software developers, I had 5 customers that were paying me money every month to run these monthly campaigns. And most of them had signed up, for 6 months, for 9 months. So I had a little bit of runway. So the basic lesson is, look, you can go to an angel investor who is the first type of person that's going to give you money in the beginning when there is no proof of the concept. And then eventually you can go to a venture capitalist. But really at the end of the day, what you really need is customers, right? So the question to solve is, how do you get to those early paying customers as quickly as possible? And if your product needs to start as a service first, there's nothing wrong with that. Start as a service, do it manually, do it yourself until you have enough scale, enough demand to then build, right, a platform that will scale you.
I love that. That's such helpful advice. And it touched upon the idea of pivoting and adapting as well. You might have an idea where you want to be a product business, but you might have to start off as a service to begin with, or maybe in some other fashion. The business model can continue to change, but ideally you need that paying customer. You need the money coming in to produce. So thank you for that. That was great advice. And early in the book, you state 7 myths. And we touched upon the one, a unicorn company. You've also, you share that you need a co-founder. Hard work means bigger success, and that you need venture capital, money, so on. Which of these 7 myths do you believe most people have trouble overcoming?
I actually think the one that really gets in the way for people is this unicorn or nothing. I know we talked a little bit about it before, but I want to say a couple more things, because unicorn or nothing, what it does is it sets this completely unrealistic expectation, right? That unless you created this company that is worth $1 billion down the line, that everything that you did was not a success. And really nothing could be further from the truth, right? I write about right under unicorns, you have lions and gazelles and, elephants and all sorts of well-fed, valuable and real animals, right? And so to set yourself up to create a unicorn with your first startup is such an unrealistic expectation, right? Most companies don't make it to unicorns. There's very few that do. And the ones that do, it usually takes them a good 10 to 12 years to get there. By the time they've gotten there, the founder owns a very small percentage of the company, right? Because it's been really grown by the additional outside funding that's been received. So instead of setting yourself up to go build this unicorn, this sort of mythical outcome, why not set yourself to build something that's actually completely possible? Like, something that's completely possible is, I'm going to set myself up to build a company that solves a very important need for my customer. It's a need I care about. It's a need I want to see solved. So I want to make an impact. 2, I want to make revenue of $1 million, and I want to be able to keep half of it as profit. Those are perfect goals to have for your first company. You get to that with your first company and then continue to grow from there, and amazing things are going to happen.
That's awesome. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, but I don't think any founder that ends up owning a unicorn company goes into the company thinking this is going to be a unicorn company. It's, I'm sure Jeff Bezos was just trying to sell some books or build an online marketplace. I don't think he quite could see down the road that his business was going to be what it is. I'm pretty sure there's a quote that he even would go to venture capitalists and say that there's like an 80% chance Amazon's going to fail. So that's another piece that I think the millennial generation is going to struggle with, because they see these big bright lights, they want that, but I don't think anyone is even imagining that. That's not even a focus. They're just trying to get to tomorrow and get money coming in and keep the business going.
That's right.
Cool. So if someone just finds your book on my page, on your page, New Startup Mindset, what's the number one takeaway you would like readers to obtain after reading it?
Yes. So the main takeaway is forget anything that you heard out there. I mean, it's great to do research. It's great to take in what resonates for you. But at the end of the day, I believe that every person out there can create a company. There is a company that you can create, and you can go out and create it in the ways that make sense to you, right? So the formula is out there. If the formula is useful, pick from it. If it's not useful from it, then go still do and create what you're meant to create. That's the number one takeaway. Don't let any of these myths, don't let any of these like very prescriptive ways get in the way of creating what you are meant to create.
That's powerful. Cool. And now that someone is, this kind of two-part question, someone is leaving college, they're 22, 24 years old. What do you believe, or what is advice that you wish you had at that age? And then two, what do you think in the current day in 2020, the number one skill young professionals should spend time to look to master?
Perfect. So the first part, looking back, whenever I see myself having to enact one of these mindset shifts that I describe in the book, is because underneath it all, there's fear, right? And so generally, when we feel fear as human beings, we want to turn away from the fear. We want to go back to safety. But really, the most powerful lesson that I can share with my 22-year-old self is to lean into that fear. So whenever I see fear, is to go into it and go through it. Because once I manage to go through that fear and face it, I become better, right? And I talk quite a bit about this in the book. But when you start a company, I didn't know how to do half of the things that were required to be done in my company. Yes, I knew about clinical trials. I knew about marketing, right? But I didn't know anything about incorporating a company, filing a patent, developing software, setting up a master service agreement with a company. I didn't know any of these things. So instead of like fear sort of petrifying me, it's the opposite. It's like this fear is showing me that I don't know something, and this is a great opportunity for me to learn and acquire a new skill. So the bottom line of this tip is whenever fear comes up, see it and then go through it. Go into that fear, because on the other side of fear are skills, confidence, right? And sort of like this ability, that this sort of this feeling that you feel that, wow, I've overcome this and I'm on the other side and I'm stronger and better for that. And then on the second part of your question, what I believe to be the number one skills that young professionals should master today is what I talk about in chapter 2, which I call single deep focus. And single deep focus is this ability to focus in a very devoted way for a period of time, a set period of time, let's say 2 hours a day, on a task that's really important to the startup or the creation, right? So I call these the vital organs of what you're creating. And that type of creation doesn't occur very well when we are multitasking. It only occurs to the deepest and best, with the best result when we are in this process of single deep focus. So, this generation, but also any generation today, we're all very distracted. We have a lot of devices and rings and beeps and people that need us. And the bottom line is to really protect the time every day and say, every day from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., that's going to be my single deep focus time. And today I am going to work on the patent. Tomorrow I'm going to work on these new features that my software needs, and really protecting that time, because that's how really good creation takes place.
That's perfect advice, especially to all generations, and especially in our current day where our digital devices are taking us over. And someone that I really like to read up on is Robin Sharma, another author, and he says something where, and it's a research study, where everything we look at, there's attention residue that we leave on that device or that person, and that takes away from our cognitive bandwidth. Ultimately, we only have so much in a day to put towards. So that is advice that anyone can take, whether you're 18 or you're 45, 55. I'm sure you can find value in that. So that's something I'm working on diligently each day as well. So I appreciate that good advice. I got one more question, and then I got a couple more quicker ones, but this is more of a personal question. The idea of pursuing a higher education degree. Did you go for your MBA at UPenn because you wanted to maybe take the next step in the company you're working in, or did you actually believe that what you were going to learn in the classroom was going to benefit you? I mean, I have a master's degree, not an MBA. I also am a big self-educator with the books. So I'd love to hear your take on this. Maybe in the 2020 lens, is that degree necessary, or maybe just deep focus with a bunch of good books can serve you just as well?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. I personally got a lot out of my MBA degree. And I think, it was based on the circumstances that I was coming from. So I immigrated to the United States when I was 16. I finished my senior year of high school, and then I had to apply to college right away. I didn't even know what the SAT was, right? So that's where I was starting from. And my parents were trying to keep jobs, right? Like that was sort of like the setup. So I ended up going to a university, Pace University in New York City, which is not a ranked university, but it is an excellent place. I had a very good education. They had an awesome career services, really invested in getting every person a job after graduation. And so that's what I got. I got a job in accounting. And after working in accounting on Wall Street for a little bit, I realized that I actually wanted to switch industries. I wanted to go into something related to health, but I really found like no way of doing that unless I switched into health to also do accounting, right? Um, and so I decided to pursue my MBA primarily to tool myself to be able to switch industries and switch functions. So I was doing both. I wanted to switch industries into something related to health, maybe biotech, biopharma, right? And that's where I ended up. I ended up in biotech, and also switch functions out of accounting, which was super useful and has been really one of the most important things that I've learned, into something that had more to do with marketing and product and, sort of more outward facing. And so for me, the MBA was crucial to accomplish that because, one, I had an opportunity to learn some of these subjects in more detail. But two, between the first year and the second year of MBA, traditionally MBA students do an internship. And that internship for me was at Genentech, the mother of all biotech companies out here in California. And that really set me on a path to continue to explore and be able to to sort of show that I had that interest in being in biotech. So shortly after I graduated from Wharton, I went to work at Centocor, which is Johnson & Johnson's biotech company, and then a BioMarin, which is a biotechnology company here for rare diseases. And all of that was really important background to the company that I ended up founding, right? I brought that background to my startup.
Gotcha. Awesome stuff. And it really truly matters to that specific person, where they are in their life, where they want to go, where their goals are, and then also maybe what their family background is and what could be the best decision for them in terms of
Yes.
a higher degree.
And maybe just to round out the answer there, at the end of the day, it's a big investment to go get an MBA. It's an investment of time, it's an investment of tuition, and it's also an investment of the opportunity cost, right? The 2 years that you were not in the workforce, if you're going to pursue it full time. Some people pursue their MBAs part time on the weekends or so forth. But the bottom line is, at the end of the day, what really matters is what you're going to do with that MBA. So you make a good point. Maybe you don't need that structure, right, to learn the content. Maybe you don't even need that structure to establish some of the connections that are made in business school. So it's a little bit of a trade-off. I think for me, again, it was very useful. And I think at the end of the day, each person should sort of say, well, where am I at? What do I need at this time? And is this the best way for me to obtain those skills and those connections?
Awesome. Great advice. A few last questions that could be answered within a sentence if you'd like. Can the Unleashed Knowledge community expect more books from you?
Yes, I am writing another book. This one's a little bit different. It's called Inner Adventure. And it's about finding and activating the wisest part of you, which is way deep inside each one of us.
Very cool. That's exciting. I'll be looking out for that one. I think that's going to help a lot of people as well, like this book has. And next question is there anything still unwritten for you? Do you have a wild dream you're still looking to pursue? Building a company obviously takes a ton of time away, not much leisure or social life during that process. So what is still unwritten for Sandra?
Yeah, I think what's still unwritten is I have this dream that maybe in like 10 years time, I want to open a retreat center. Um, like a place where people can come or get content from that would help them kind of break through some of these mindset shifts that we human beings tend to get very stuck in, fear, lack of confidence, negative self-talk, and sort of break through all of that to really enable their potential. So that's my dream. We'll see if it happens.
I think that's a very obtainable dream, and I think the fulfillment and the growth that you'll be able to witness is going to be, everlasting, and probably could be the most pride possession or accomplishment of yours. That sounds really cool. I'd be interested in attending myself if I find myself in a very struggling point. We'll see what life brings. Last question. Do you have a book or a few books that you always find yourself rereading or perhaps gifting out to others?
Yes. My favorite book of all time, or at this time, is Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. So nonviolent communication is such an important book to read anytime in your life and over again, because what it does is it gives you an opportunity to turn every interaction into an opportunity for connection instead of disconnection, an opportunity for peace instead of conflict, an opportunity for empathy. And so that book has been a life changer for me. There's sort of a very specific way that you speak in nonviolent communication, and I brought that to my household. And so they all speak in that kind of robotic way sometimes, but it's really furthered so many of my relationships when I am able to speak in a nonviolent way and communicate in a nonviolent way. And basically the key aspect about nonviolent communication is that you're really trying to get to the other person's needs. Like, what are they needing right now? And can they verbalize it? Can they locate themselves? Or do you need to help them locate themselves? But once we know what the needs are of the other person, then we can have a good discussion.
Interesting. I mean, that's definitely a book I'll note myself. I haven't heard of it, or at least it hasn't entered the library quite yet. But I think that's super important, and that can help in so many areas of your life, not just business or even just walking on the street or interacting with someone for a quick 5 minutes. I'm sure that could be beneficial. So
Yes.
good stuff. And last question: do you have a personal mantra that you kind of resonate with each day? You remind yourself with, or perhaps a phrase that's been passed down a couple of generations or from your parents?
Yes. My favorite one is good news, bad news, who knows? Question mark. And I love this phrase. Well, let me back up. It comes from a Chinese proverb, right? In which this farmer has a lot of things happen to him, to his son, actually. And the neighbors come and they tell him, oh, that's really good news. And he responds, good news, bad news, who knows? And then something bad happens to the son, bad. And then the neighbors come like, oh, this is such bad luck you're having. And he says, good news, bad news, who knows? And as the story is nested, you begin to realize that some of the things that appear to be bad were actually good. And some of the things that appear to be good were actually not that great, And so I love this as a mantra every day because it reminds me to sort of not judge the present moment too much, because sometimes we don't know what this means in the grand scheme of things. And so if I judge this moment as bad, I lose the opportunity of contemplating that it could actually be really good for me that this is happening. And if I think of this moment as good, I almost get too enamored with it and lose the opportunity to think that maybe this isn't actually so good for me, even though it might feel joyful and pleasurable. So I love that. Good news, bad news, who knows? If something comes your way, good news, bad news, who knows? Kind of staying detached from the present moment, staying detached from the event, right? In that it can mean many different things.
That's awesome. I love that. And now that I think about it, that is in the book, and I resonated with that. I come from a sports background, so we have a similar kind of saying where, celebrate your wins and losses the same. You can't get too high on the high moments. You can't get too low on the low moments, because tomorrow is going to bring something new. And furthermore, and you spoke on this just now, that I really think, the most, treacherous moments, there's always such good that comes out of it. And then, not saying that every good moment brings bad, but you shouldn't get too filled up in the good moment, because then your guard could get down, you could become complacent, and then those bad moments may come around the corner. So good advice. I love that, and I'll have to implement that into my daily or morning little speeches that I give myself. So thank you so much, Sandra. This is so fun, and I'm really thankful for us building a relationship and for your new book that is winning awards, and I'm sure it's going to continue to impact tons of people. I truly loved reading it. I'm glad to have a hard copy now too. I read the paperback copy because that was the first one I had. But again, thank you, and I appreciate all of your work.
Awesome. Oh, and this was fantastic. I really enjoyed talking to you, and thank you so much for doing this.